It says we're live. We're live. Hello, everybody. How are you? How
Hello.
are you? We'll put a
Hello.
comment up here. Hello. Is this thing live? One Monkey, great Star Trek show, or the greatest Star Trek show?
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. You didn't have to say that about us, but we appreciate it.
We are an excellent podcast. It's 2060, you guys. Hello, everybody. I guess a lot of you are probably not patrons, and you're wondering what we thought about this series because this is your only chance.
You cheap
we're
sons of bitches.
It dropped down to 17. I guess they're all gone at this point. So anyway, hello everybody. Hope everybody's having a good night. Welcome to our post season 2 Picard stream, where I figure the ground rules for this. So we're probably not going to get too specific about everything, but it'll be mostly a chat with the patrons, what they thought. I'm interested to see what everybody else thought about this, and then we'll just take it from there. But if you're unaware, if you want the whole coverage, go to patreon.com/Lipinski File. It's where all the episodes of Star Trek Picard live, all 10 of them. And who knows if they're ever going to go anywhere else. So let's say hello to Redneck Lover 22, One Monkey, Skippy the Alien Changeling, Eric Sanchuan, Zaylen Maru, Jonathan JK, Video Void TV, Matt Ross, hello, Tim Yo, Jaron Hatch, or Yaron Hatch perhaps, Matt Ross again, Brandon Hells, Norman Buckwald, Christian, and any new Yum Yum podcast. Any new names? That's it. Gray Misfit. Anyone else? Jason, Jakeys, how are you? All right, guys, let's get to it. So, Clay, how are you? I guess I'll look through these comments while you tell me exactly how your day is going.
Oh, well, I was doing well until you had told me, it's like, oh yeah, we're done with Picard, no more Picard, that's over. And then you just when I thought I was out, you pulled me back in. So
we have to. I think I might have a mental block with the show. I was trying to remember what happened, and I don't remember what happened, which is probably
let me Romulan earpiece my way into your mind, and we can spend 2 hours when you should be doing something else more important, figuring out what happened in the show.
I did give it a 5. It was perfect. It was a perfect show. YouTube commentary is already this show's legacy. Could be true. Could be true. It's something that's gonna live in infamy, right? That I think only a select few known as Star Trek devotees are going to be interested in. Anyone else here alive? Thing that I can say is that the show was in focus and had sound. It did.
Sure did.
Correct?
Yeah.
Too much sound occasionally. I'm cheap. Gray Misfit. Gray Misfit sounds familiar. I think you're on the Discord.
Free section, probably.
In the words of Todd Packer from The Office, what's up, my nerds? Hello, everybody. Jay Stanley, hello. How's it going? Mercer, welcome. Everyone's here. So I guess we'll just say
you're so much more polite to everybody than when I do it for the Ron Hart Picture Show.
Yeah. Just ignore them.
Yeah, there's usually only like 5 people there at a time anyway, and I probably could take the time to say hi to everyone, but I'd never do.
Well, it's tough. It's the whole purpose of the stream, right, is to have the interaction, I suppose. So now I'm kind of flummoxed as to how to open up the interaction aspect of it, because I think everyone knows what we thought about the show in the Patreon comments. But let me know, anybody, is there a YouTube channel I think super positive about the show? Is anyone really positive about it? There's usually somebody, and if there's nobody, I'd be interested to know if that's actually the case.
We can do one of those things where we like tell everybody to go there and just start leaving nasty comments.
That's right. Do a YouTube raid. Or a raid is a good thing, I think, right? In this context.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, maybe we should do that because support is good.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Clay. Do you have any new thoughts about Star Trek Picard's second season at this point? Jesse Gender's positive, Matt Ross says. I think I'd read that somewhere. I don't watch her. Yeah.
I don't mean to jump straight to the literal end of everything. Excuse me. But I find this bridge between seasons 2 and seasons 3 so fascinating, that they're just cutting bait on everybody. Like on our Discord, we had kind of a moment where everybody sort of realized the last scene Soji has in this show is in the first episode, where she's like goes and buys a drink at the bar and then disappears forever.
Everyone gets a disreputable send off. Elnor should have just stayed dead. What was the point of bringing him back?
Well, so Rafi can be happy and there can be closure.
What's funny about the Elnor one is that it's the same with Soji. It's like you don't even realize this is the last time you're going to see them. It's kind of like life, I guess, in that respect. It's like you never know when the last time you're going to see somebody is. But this show doesn't even give you a warning that these people aren't coming back. Get used to it. And they knew it at that time. You know, the third season is in production at that point. You think they would, especially someone like Elnor, because I think there's a big difference. If Elnor is dead, right, and you don't spend the season assuming he's going to come back, it's a very different tone for Raffi and stuff there. Like there's I think it's important to know when someone is dead and when someone's not coming back. I think that's like a good thing to know in a time travel story. He should have just, I don't know. It was strange, but they don't like this cast. They unceremoniously dump them.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of that season of Saturday Night Live in the '80s, where it was just an abysmal cast, and then at the end of one year, everyone except for John Lovitz got fired.
Yeah, clean house. So it's just 7, Raffi, and Picard. Right? Yeah. That's it, and Picard. Yeah. 7 and Raffi. Interesting. They want to know, where's your soda? Your hemp water or whatever you're drinking.
Oh yeah, it's a I might as well put in a plug. Maybe we can get a sponsorship. It's a hop tea from Hop Lark, which is my new favorite drink. I've been drinking it a lot. That's what I used to summon Wes last time. It's basically sparkling or seltzer water flavored with beer hops. It sounds disgusting, but it's fantastic.
Non-alcoholic.
Yes, it's no calories, non-alcoholic.
Yeah. I still haven't tried it. I might have called it hemp, but it's not hemp. It's hops.
Hey man, it's all the same.
It'd be a different show if we were drinking hemp water. Trek culture is really positive about it. I mean, Trekcore is really positive. I need a YouTube channel where someone's brave enough to show their face and say,
you know, I'm curious about this because I don't want this to turn into like let's call out and question the thoughts and intelligence of other shows and stuff. But I am legitimately interested in what the takeaway is on the positive side, like it, because as we talked about in the wrap up, it feels like this show in particular, even more so than Discovery, favors the emotional beats over the plot. Like the plot is almost like a tertiary thing, not even secondary. It seems like it's almost tertiary.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is that what's connecting with people? This kind of ham-fisted emotion stuff that isn't earned. So you have these moments that on paper are supposed to be big emotional moments, and they're played that way. But the second you think about them, you go like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why are they doing this? How does this fit into the story? Forget about like larger franchise canon. How does this fit into the actual story they're telling? Because I mean, it's not great when we get to the last episode of the season and you and I are still going like, so what did this have to do? What did Q have to do with time travel? Why did he do this? Where did he come from? Like, why
was he so mad?
Why was he so mad? And it's like you can't, I feel like you can't get to one of the things we mentioned in the last episode is that the one emotional moment that works is the scene with Picard and Q, where Q talks about the fact that he's dying and, you know, he says, I always liked you or whatever. And the only reason we realized that worked is because it's sitting on top of 30 years of TNG.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the show you just watched. It's all based on familiarity with those characters in a legacy capacity.
Yep.
So it's just interesting to me how this show and its very hollow depictions of emotional high points and stuff is satisfying to people.
Yeah, I think Jaren says here themes of trauma were pretty lauded, which is fair enough.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can say your theme is trauma as much as you want, but just because you say that what the theme is doesn't mean that it's well
developed,
developed. Yeah. You know, it's and the way that they handled that stuff in this season was just like it was borderline insulting in a lot of places. So I can't give a show credit just because it claims to be about something.
Tyler, we will be doing a review for Strange New Worlds. It's on Patreon, patreon.com/the Pensky Files, same as all the Picard stuff. So apologies if you wanted to be on YouTube, but it's not going to be. What would you say is the most, and the people out there, what's the best part of this season for you? Was it Q? Was it just Delancey being back? Was it the Borg storyline? Was it Patrick Stewart's performance?
It was the FBI agent for me. That was my favorite part of the
season. His survivor. People were kind of surprised in the comments that he didn't come back, and maybe it's the like, you feel like you're kind of in an army, and some people think that you're still going to win this war as people are getting shot in the barrier. You know, things are going down around them, but they're like, we can still win this. That for me was, I didn't even consider that guy was coming back. That guy's done. He got fired, and he's got nothing left to do.
That's so wild to me, because every storytelling and narrative bone in my body says that guy comes back at the end. And like, even if it's a tiny thing where it's like, you know, they're on their way out and
he looks at the ship flying off in the distance.
Well, or like they're wrapping things up, and Rios is like, oh geez, how am I gonna live in the past? And they hard cut to this guy being like, you know what? I got some connections with the Bureau still. I can help you out. Like something like that. You know, it's
yeah, Brandon's kind of fond of the FBI agent. Yeah, I mean, he had a link to Voyager. He had all that stuff, and people expected him to come back. A lot of car batteries mentioned. Didn't strike me as too weird, that one. I understand it is very weird, but it didn't really stick out to me for some reason. Like I'd given up on the Borg at that point. I found her breaking the bar window stranger than eating the car batteries.
100%.
Because it didn't make any sense. The car battery at least is like, well, batteries have lithium in them, and she needs lithium. I go, okay, that's whatever.
I think that's a good example of what feels so off about this season, is because like the thing that they're going for with Agnes and the Borg together like that, right? They talk about how it's the endorphin rush that allows the Borg Queen to more easily blend with her and stuff. And they're clearly going for this theme that Agnes is lonely and that she's trying to come out of her shell and stuff. If you have them get together like 3 episodes earlier, you can actually like stretch that out, and you have like the Borg Queen forcing Agnes into doing things she's not comfortable with. And you know what I mean? So it actually feels like camaraderie and character development, instead of just 2 really awkward scenes, one where she sings in front of everybody for some reason, and another one where she decides to just smash a window.
Yeah. She might have been my least favorite of them all. I'm not getting good juju from their final comments that I see pasted on Twitter and like articles and stuff. It doesn't seem a positive end to it. I'd be curious what those people thought. I know that Todd, who had done he has the Computer Resume podcast, and he's been on this talking about some of the stuff, but he had the actor who plays Elnor on his podcast before the season started, and he was talking to him. He he obviously said that he couldn't talk about anything, but he certainly didn't let slip that he was only in 1.5 of the episodes the entire season. And certainly didn't talk about not being in it the 3rd season. So it is interesting for what it is. Let's see here. Judas got 30 pieces of silver for turning in Jesus. How much did you get for Picard for being a patron exclusive? The patron did well for that. You guys like to hear us complain about watching a terrible season of Star Trek. We'll see if Strange New Worlds continues that, or if people are like, well, if they actually kind of like this show, I'm not interested in hearing what they have to say about it. Lithium, playing Nirvana song. Let's show. The new theme. I thought the motif was kind of the same as the first season. I didn't recognize it as that different.
I didn't even recognize the song on the first listen through, because I remembered. I thought I remembered fairly clearly the theme from the first season, and when I watched the credits, maybe 2 or 3 times, and it it did not ring a bell with me at all.
Do you think
why do they change it? Like, what I don't understand why they changed the theme.
I sort of recognized it. Maybe I'm just going off bad memories, but it felt like it was the same motif to me. It was like the same melody carrying on it with a different arrangement or whatever, but I'm not sure. I think the nostalgia of the 90s theme songs does a lot for me. I tend to skip the new theme credits. And a lot of it's is because when I see a 42-minute Picard episode, I know that skipping the credits is 3 minutes off that runtime, and I can just get to the end faster. So I'm not ashamed to admit that I mostly skip these credits. I'll probably even skip Strange. Oh, we didn't talk about it in the thing. We can talk about it here because we're not going to talk about it on the Patreon. The Strange New Worlds theme song was pretty good. I thought it felt appropriate.
Yeah, well, yeah, we didn't talk about that, did we?
No.
I liked it. Well, I'm a little on the fence with it because I kind of liked the idea of what they were doing, where they were kind of taking the TOS theme and tweaking it a bit. But it also, Jesus, excuse me, it also in that way made it sound kind of like a ripoff.
Sure.
Like I had the same problem with Rogue One, where they tried to do like a John Williams-esque theme that wasn't just the Star Wars music. And it ended up just sounding like a generic sci-fi Star Wars ripoff theme to me. And I feel like the Strange New World theme avoids that by getting away from that TOS motif relatively quickly. So I think it works okay.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Mark. How are you? Enchantment of Eternity. It's possible to pick out any part of a season as good because anything I may have liked at the time was rendered invalid by how horrible it was concluded. Yeah, we liked the first episode, I think, and after that, it all kind of fell apart. It ties into this. Do you think there's any potential for anything interesting with all the story and thematic elements, or is it always going to be a cluster kerfuffle? Well, this is one of those things that ties into liking the first episode. It takes you a minute to realize that they don't know what they're doing. You can't adequately show that you don't know what you're doing in the first episode of anything because you don't know what you're supposed to get away from it. So the first sign that things were going badly was, you have to remember, this show spent an entire episode in the alternate timeline for no reason, which is kind of incredible because it's one of those things that if they just went there for 5 minutes, you get the point across the exact same way as if they had not spent that entire episode there. If you go, this is not the world we want, Q, take us to the past so we can fix this. And he snaps his fingers and gets you out of there, and that's all you need. But it was a season that was spent just almost desperately searching for it to be about something. And that's what that little sojourn felt like to me. It's like, well, I guess we should kind of see what this looks like. And then after showing us all that stuff, you get to the end and it's the Romulan badge on the Borg ship. It's just like they didn't do anything with it. Why did they show us this in the start and not actually do anything with it? Crazy.
Yeah, I think there was potential there. There's a lot of stuff going on, but again, they just don't spend any time with it in a story capacity. Like I thought the stuff with Seven was legitimately interesting. Having her go to this alternate reality where she's no longer and never was a Borg, and how that makes her feel differently and how people react to her differently. That's a legitimately interesting thing to do with her. And they paid lip service to it like twice, and then they wrapped that story up by having her get horribly, violently reborgified and be happy about it. So not exactly where I would have gone with it, but sure.
It'll be interesting when our Voyager coverage gets to 7. Because 7 doesn't exist in my mind specifically enough where I can really identify what she is supposed to be at this point.
Yeah,
like I know it's wrong. I know that it's wrong where she is, but it's not crystal clear to me how wrong it is. So I think that's why we don't particularly talk to her about her all that much. Let's see here.
Same with like Raffi and stuff. Like there was nothing to the Raffi story and the Elnor stuff that
No.
felt honest at all. I still maintain that I think they should have killed Raffi. I think it should have been Elnor that went through the story.
Yeah.
Because that just makes the most sense. So, because I mean, especially if you're pairing, I know they're trying to pair Seven and Raffi because they ham-fistedly shoehorned a relationship plot into the last like episode of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, ooh, let's put them together and see how they interact with each other. And the answer is not very interestingly. So, because they're both the same character. They're both two badass ladies.
Yes.
Who like, and there's no real interesting contrast there. So if you got rid of Raffi and you had Seven paired with Elnor, and so you've got Seven, who's someone who used to be different and is now normal, and you've got Elnor, who is someone who's not only not from this planet but not from this time. You've got a really interesting dynamic you can play with there. You can have like Seven trying to show Elnor the ropes in certain ways, and which enlightens her to how people are reacting differently to her, and blah 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 blah, and all that kind of bullshit. Stuff that characters do when they're written interestingly.
Yeah. Is this the worst? This is probably the worst cast, I think, right?
As far as like acting ability, or just
the worst character cast, the worst list of characters. So. I would like Enterprise is probably its next competitor against it. I think even Discovery does a little bit better than this in terms of its
I would say so.
work between the two of them.
I think the characters on Discovery are way more interesting than they are in Picard.
Yeah.
No matter whether or not they're dead or alive or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. The Picard characters just don't have. They were characters who were clearly written for just the one season, and it almost seemed like it surprised them to continue on, and they weren't sure what to do with them. I guess we talked at the start, they were so unclear to do with them. It's almost surprising they even brought them back. I didn't need to see Soji, really. It's fine to not have her be. And they must have felt so bad that they gave her that completely pointless role as the daughter of Soong for no reason, and she doesn't do anything. There's no reason for that character to exist. So,
Wes, she saves the world by deleting his hard drive from the library. So
yeah, what does she do? I mean, she deletes his files. What does that accomplish? She just deletes his eugenics work.
Yeah, I guess he can't make any more copies of her, so he dusts off the good old con file.
Yeah, blow the dust off of that one. We haven't. This is a little sojourn that we can get to. Well, actually, we'll do this and then we can get to the sojourn. Have seen people praise the series for evolving the Borg and turning them good. Just curious if this is a thing that people ever really wanted. Like, who wants the Borg to be good? Where do you think this? They did turn the Borg good. They did it in a way that does not really explain what they did or how this works in any sense of like whether or not the Borg have been out there being a good Borg sect for a while.
Right.
What is they mentioned it early that they want the Borg to join the Federation. I think it's in the first episode. They bring it up as a possibility.
Yes. Which was an interesting conversation for them to have. Because they had I think it was Rios who was kind of in the positive, and then you had, or maybe it was Picard. I think Picard and Seven were both like, no, definitely not.
No, Picard was pro. Picard was pro. He's like, why don't we have it? It was only Seven who was being reasonable. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the interesting scene to have, because like it is one of those conversations where it's like, how much do we want to push these people away if they need help, or if they do actively want to join us? And the way they ended up handling it, I actually I would have been more okay with it if whatever Agnes and the Borg Queen had become was something other than the Borg. Like if there was a new entity that they created.
I just wanted to shout out Sven for sending, I think these are Korean dollars, but it's very much appreciated. He said, I just wanted to say that I love the Voyager stuff. Keep it up. I have to sleep now. It's 3 a.m., which would make sense, that being Korea, because I think it's as my high school education goes, I think it's on the other side of the world. Let's see. Yeah, the Borg going good. Sorry, guys. There's a lot of comments. This is the biggest stream that we've had, and there's a lot of people talking. I'm having trouble tracking it. The Borg being good is The Borg being good is an outlook that I think is very interesting for the show to have, because it's similar in some ways to something that I always think is true in modern culture and political discussions, which is that in this show, the Borg, which are kind of a unassailably evil, antithetical to a liberal point of view, where it's about becoming part of this collective. You no longer have your agency. You no longer have anything that you want. Everything becomes subjugated to the whole. The hive is more important than anything else. Your body is mutilated. Your mind is mutilated. It's torturous. No one wants to go back. No one wants to do it. They find good in that, right? But they are hostile to something like ice, which is clearly more complicated, right? So there's this you say that ice is pure evil and that there's nothing good about ice. Like they're basically an agency that exists to find people who are trying to live in this country and throw them out. That's the entire point that some people think about what ice is. It's more complicated than that. There's border laws, there's illegal immigration, there's whether or not this is the right thing to do, whether or not you should, how you get rid of people who are coming over who are extremely violent, how you get rid of the drug aspect and everything like that. It's very complicated. But the Borg are the thing that the show goes, there's some good in the Borg. We just have to give them a chance. We have to listen to what they have to say, because I'm sure they have a nuanced take on life. It's weird. I see that in all aspects of life, but it just, to me, it seems incredibly myopic and not thoughtful. I don't really know what else to say about it, but it's just one of those things. It's like sometimes the evil that's created should just probably stay evil because its conception is kind of evil. So I don't know whether or not you want to redeem them in any way. Or I didn't like it.
I mean, if you're gonna do that, God forbid, have your characters learn something from it and maybe change their opinions about other things that they have shown through the story in some way. I also think they kind of, this gets back to my.
Sorry, I voted for the my pillow guy. Is he running? I wasn't sure.
He has the evidence. He has the evidence. I don't know what you're talking about. What's there to? Why is this funny?
People are extremely impressed by dossiers of evidence.
Yeah.
The Steele dossier didn't work out, but all the other dossiers are fine.
Yeah. Just going back to what I was saying about how the show cares about emotion but doesn't care about the actual story that they're telling, is they quote unquote turn the Borg good, but they don't even they kind of half-ass it, really, because
sorry, everyone's making fun of me for Swedish lack of Swedish knowledge.
No, I guess that is a good point. I mean, not that a person named Sven couldn't be living in Korea, but
no, I imagine there's a lot of Americans named Sven living over there too.
Yeah.
Well, SEK, Kroner, I guess. There you go. That makes sense.
But they half-assed it, and they didn't really do it in a satisfying way, because instead of leading to an actual acceptance of the Borg as they exist in the prime timeline that they're supposedly fixing, they create this other thing with Agnes that might be the only Borg. It might be a new thing. It's kind of unclear what's going on here timeline wise. So it feels like a big cheat to me to go we want to have the Borg, but we don't want to have this Borg. We'll just make our own, and then we'll let those guys in. It's like in any political movement where it's this is what we're gonna support. Well, what about these other people that affects? Well, no, not them.
Yeah, not them.
Just these ones.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating that they, at the end, they don't even really look different than the Borg. There's no difference between them. They're still cyborgs,
She got a cool mask that she wore for some reason instead of leading with the fact that she had Agnes's face.
Someone did highlight that she kind of looks like Neelix. She has Neelix spots on her face, and that was upsetting too.
So let's slightly try to unpack this a little bit. So do you think that if we were to ask the showrunners about this stuff, as far as what does this Borg mean? How do they exist? Do they exist in addition to or in place of the original Borg? Basic storytelling questions. Um, do you think that the answer would be like, well, the timeline is so malleable that the point at which we come out, everything in between the part where they get to the Borg shows up on the Stargazer and the moment that they come back from the past is really in flux and literally anything could happen? Do you think they're going to give that some sort of bullshit answer?
Yes. Well, what's weird about them is their defense of the timeline in the first place, where maybe it wasn't even them, but it was some writers who were like, listen, guys, this is a simple thing. Here's a 60 tweet thread about how simple this is. And you go like, what the hell are they talking about? So it was confusing from the start. I wonder if these shows just spiral into like a think tanky thing where there's a kind of simple problem in front of you, but there's so many solutions that it's becoming incredibly complicated as to like what the solution is at that point. And when you start just throwing in more ideas on top of it, you end in a place where, why didn't we just do the simple way here?
Right.
Like instead we spent an hour going complicated.
Well, I mean, if you think about what happens, like I think if you go back and you watch that first episode again, you'll be able to see right away how much like not cheating, but like artificially making it seem more interesting than it actually was kind of stuff they're dumping on there, and it ends up just messing the whole thing up because it starts with the good old the Stargazer version of Picard's been hit by a car, but we don't know he's been hit by a car yet. So you see the Stargazer blowing up, and he's like, self-destruct, and then they jump backwards, and so you see how they got to that point, and then from that point, then she says, "Look up," which is like, oh, he understands that for some reason. She says, "Look up," instead of showing him her face for some reason. And then you've got the explosion, then Q snapping them away, an alternate timeline, and it's just trying so desperately hard to be interesting and compelling that it ultimately is none of those things, because by the time you get to the end of the episode, you're going like, what the hell is going on? And not in like a fun Lost kind of way. It's just like I literally don't know what thread I'm supposed to be following here.
I don't know what the writers would be. I don't know what the writers would say about this. Like, as in what Eric's comment here is talking about, it's the same production group, but no spoilers here. If you want the full content, you can go to Patreon. But like, we liked Strange New Worlds, and I don't know why. It's the whole point I've been making about like, I would love a behind the scenes documentary about the fly in the wall process of how these shows are written to this point, because up to Strange New Worlds, they've been so consistent in the things that they don't do well, except for Lower Decks for whatever reason. Lower Decks is a totally different animal, so it doesn't seem like whatever the other processes can interfere with it. But they're generally the same. They all generally have the same problems. Picard's was just like an egregious amount of those problems stacked onto each other. And I don't know why. I don't know what to think in terms of what they were thinking. It's not that this show was rushed either. I feel like we had 2 years almost between the first and the second season of Picard. It was a long time. And so it's such a cluster. It's hard to even determine where the problem starts there. Right. It's like the whole thing is just kind of broken. And I don't know. It's weird to me that Strange New Worlds can seem so relatively competent at the same time when it's written and produced by the same people. And I don't know. Marketing for this season, says Stephen Ross, was all about the hook of undoing a dystopian alternate reality, but the alternate timeline was the least important aspect of the plot.
I still, again, we talked about this for a while. I still don't understand why they went back in time.
Right.
Like, I don't understand what caused the divergence, why they needed to be sent back. No idea.
Well, he brings up a good point, because I think there are several possible spines to this season. Like the undoing of a dystopian reality is one of them. I think the Borg assimilating the past, a la First Contact, is another one. That's another spine that could be down the center of it that you go off of. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a concept blender thing where they're just like time travel, Borg, dystopian future, throw that in the blender, see what comes out. Q, Soong, just Memory Alpha just dumping stuff into this mix and came out somewhere. Might be an oversimplification, but it might be that for Strange New Worlds, they just decided not to try that hard.
That's kind of what I was saying on the show, where it's like they go so hard on Discovery and Picard to try and make it like modern and different, and then Strange New World is like, fine, this is what you want, fucking have it. You want a ham sandwich? I'll give you a goddamn ham sandwich, and it's great.
Yeah,
because your mom's been trying to make chicken cordon bleu for the past week. Yeah. It's like I just want to eat lunch.
Yeah, I know. And I'm getting mad I'm starting to get mad at her for making me the sandwich of the first. It's like, come on, just do it. What is this? It's a good point, Jason. I mean, yeah, we'll see. We got more time. We got more time to see. You're going to see new things that you've never seen on Star Trek. Yes, personal problems, Patrick. So
I was just going to say, like, even that's weird because, like, the story that they end up telling is so strange that is because I don't know a ton about Patrick Stewart's personal history, but I do know that his mother was in an abusive relationship, and that was very impactful on him. Given the way it plays out in the show, I don't know how impactful it actually was, because they really kind of hand wave it quite a bit in a way that is frankly kind of shocking.
And benefits the father, really.
Right,
like, it's just the mother. I don't think the show is saying the mother deserved it, but there's no narrative to Picard's trauma in this, which is the shocking part. They remove any kind of, like, it's not even that he couldn't protect his mother, like they were sort of trying to take care of her in this weird, strange way, but like, I don't know.
It's just it's an odd setup, right? Because ultimately what Picard was trying to do, or I guess what Q was trying to make happen, who the fuck knows, the end point is that what Picard was trying to work through was absolving himself from the guilt of the death of his mother, right?
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that's the thing he's working towards until deep into the season. And so you're getting all of this mom stuff that is completely abstract and vague, and you don't really know what it's driving towards at all. And when they finally tell you, it's really kind of weird and comes out of nowhere, because it's not something that they've been building on. It's just been a weird kind of puzzle boxy type stuff. And then it's like, oh yeah, she fucking hanged herself, excuse me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a really weird way to lay this out, where it's like he thinks he's compartmentalized it as the fact that she was abused by her husband, only to realize that's a repressed memory, that she was actually mentally ill, and then she killed herself, and then he blames himself for that. It's just it's a lot of stuff that I think you could tell the same story in a more thoughtful way.
Yeah.
Without the all that extra baggage, lumped on top of it.
Just had nothing. It had nothing to do with anything. Woodrow says Terry Metalis is new, isn't he? He's the X Factor. And then, as Eric says in here, Metalis was early in the season, but they moved him to production on the third season. So Goldsman was running the show for most of this season, which is
so it sounds to me
Strange New Worlds is the way it is.
Yeah, it sounds to me like he wrote the first 2 episodes and then forgot to leave them the outline for the rest.
Yeah,
was
it just a rewrite at that point? And then Terry's Goldsman is just calling him. He's like, Terry, your cell phone has been dead for 6 months. I can't get through to you. I don't know how to wrap up this story. That's the strange thing about it. Mother was an abuse victim. She was. Filmation had better writers. The whole trauma arc was lame, but I can excuse it. I took way more issue with the many ways they ignored things that are already established, and what they did with the Borg was a death rattle.
First of all, that's quite a profile pic you got there, Paul.
No Borgify you. Monsters in the Basement gave me a very strong Doctor Who vibe.
Yeah, it had some Doctor Who in there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It strikes me. It felt. I'm not a Who fan, so I can't comment. But
Quadrophenia, great album.
had Pan's Labyrinth vibes to
Oh,
me.
sure. Yep. Mhm.
Just that kind of thing, and that's probably not the best thing. Let's see here. One track has a weird affection for praising the wrong side of the issue being explored. Picard's dad is seen as quite the nobleman of Zog. Yeah, I mean, this is ties into the Borg type thing. Although I mean, Picard's father never actually did anything wrong in this story. It was just Picard
Right.
thought he had done something wrong, which the next Thanksgiving dinner is going to be incredibly awkward when Picard has to apologize for not
Right.
asking his father. Did I
Is this
misunderstand when you locked my mother in the room what was going on for
I'm
35 years?
I am so sorry, Dad.
I blamed you. I blamed you. Coming from someone who thinks that Picard is the weakest of all the Trek series, I wonder how much of that is due to its legacy characters and plot elements that fans cherish versus its own merits. I would love
Um,
Amy to watch this show. I won't punish
mm,
her enough to do that, but I don't. I just think that anyone unfamiliar with this would watch this season and go, "What the hell? What the hell's going on?
I
What is
can
this?"
I can tell you that as I was watching some episodes, my girlfriend was in the other room, and so she overheard a lot of it, and more than one time she shouted over to me, "That show sounds bad."
It does. Is doing this live stream a meta commentary on the show, forcing all of us to revisit the trauma of watching it? If
Do you
so,
remember
true.
do you remember like 3 or 4 episodes in when the running theory was that it was this like grand uh Kafka-esque depiction of Q or Picard actually losing their mind because
Mhm.
nothing made sense? Man, those were the good old days. I would have if that had been the case, I would have given this a standing ovation.
What kind of psychologist locks someone in the room as therapy?
Great question.
I mean, the bit we mentioned in the show, but I'm not going to spoil everything, but it's like it's the 24th century when he puts her in that room. They have a
Right. Yes.
tricorder that could fix her. So that's the weird thing is that you go, oh, well, if I'm understanding the context of this universe right, the father's actually doing something wrong because this is the equivalent of now doing bloodletting and leeches and like humor manipulation. You know, it's like this is not the thing that we do. Um, so it's cases of like those those like religious families that don't deal with medicine and they always have young kids that die because they refuse to go to the hospital or something like
Mhm,
that. Like that's
mhm.
kind of what the father does here. It's like this is not the right solution to this problem. But the show doesn't hold it against him and Picard doesn't hold it against him. So I don't know what you're supposed to think about that.
To to respond to Norman Buckwald's comment about Rick Berman being involved, I would say if he was involved with anything, it was probably the dress Girardi was wearing at that
Yeah.
party.
Va va voom.
Agnes, I love you, but the only thing I love more than you and those boobs is Pat Benatar. Is there any way we can get her into the show?
Scarlet 72 brings up what we were just talking about. So I'll give him or her credit for that. Mario says, I think strangely some of Picard's strongest stuff is the new stuff. Girardi, Rios, Laris, and all much better than 7. Whew.
Interesting.
That's a Vegas bet board that I'm not interested in taking any part of.
You know, I could see that in the first season, honestly. Like, I didn't mind Rios that much as a character in the first season, and
I think
Girardi
his
kinda
performance, I think Rios's performance is good. I think
Yes.
the actor's
Yeah,
better than that role is.
yeah. I guess it would be a mix of the 2 because, like, I didn't like, in a vacuum, I don't mind the Girardi story, like, the idea of it. I don't think that the execution of the ending of it is very good. Like, talking talking the Borg into being nice because they're actually lonely is really tiring for me to think about as a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
But like the idea that they end up hooked together and she's being used by the Borg to jumpstart more assimilations on her. That stuff is fun. Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah. And Norman's reminding us, that's actually just the trick. The father's not actually a psychiatrist.
Oh, sure.
It's just
Sure.
that
Just
weird
a-
thing where Picard does not recognize him or mention that you look exactly like my father. This is strange.
Just a salt of the earth winery owner who doesn't understand medicine.
He's
Will
a
throw
bit of a
his
Luddite.
crazy wife into the locker room in the basement.
To be honest, I was really upset about the whole Q death thing. Also, the fact that he tells everyone he has no one when I guess the writers forgot about. Oh, he has no one when I guess the writers forgot about his wife and child from Voyager. Yeah, they don't bring that up.
Wait, Q has a wife and child?
Q has a kid in Voyager.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh yeah, no, there's no that was not making it into the show.
No.
If you want to hear Artorias, I don't know if you listen to the Patreon, but if you want to hear a great explanation as to how his death could have been better, sign up for Patreon.
We won't say it here, but Clay fixes Q's death.
I do.
Now that I've had a little bit of space between the show and talking about it here and thinking about it, I think the biggest disappointment was Q in some ways.
Yeah.
Because you really could have used him the whole season. I think that his goodbye to Picard is a highlight and like a bright point in the sea of shit that we've been watching to that point. So it felt better than it was. But when I go back and I remember it, that was not a really good final scene between those two who have a tremendous amount of history with each other. It's unfortunate to send people out that way. That's what has season 3 worried about. Like if they choose to give hard endings to characters, it's never that satisfying. And this hard goodbye to Q never even mentions how he's dying in this. I don't know if it really matters, but it would have been nice to know why he's dying, like whether or not like it's a god saying that they're dying, right? You go, why are you dying? They go, that's not important. Don't think about it. Go, well, it kind of is. I think that it's important.
You can hand wave that stuff and say like, well, I could try to tell you, but the specifics of what I would be talking about would be too much for your mind to comprehend.
That's fine,
and you'd bleed out your ears.
That's fine. I just think that when you don't explain it, it comes across as this is his story here, as opposed to any kind of like real. And I think it will, like, if you actually knew why he was dying, I think that it would feed into the thing that he has with Picard more. Like, I think that it just feeds there where it makes a little bit more sense when you understand what Q's state of mind is supposed to be. But Q's state of mind goes from, I'm very angry at you, to I'm dying, to I did all of this for you.
Yeah.
So it's hard to
if only that scene had ended with Picard going, why? And then he goes, finish the sentence. Why me? Because Picard, you're the only one who knows how to get me one of those robot bodies, and I'm dying here. So if you could get me one of those robot bodies, I'd be much appreciated.
Jimmy the Gent with the very kind super chat says the explicit gore of Ichab getting his Borg eye ripped out in season 1 and Picard's mom dangling from a noose is why I dislike new Star Trek. I will defend Ichab getting his eye ripped out. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it's one of the few times that gore in this series actually means something, because it's about dehumanizing him at that point. And that's there's a point to it. There was no point to what happened to Ash Tyler with his bone-rending, back-breaking surgery and then getting raped by a Klingon. There was no...
brutal. So brutal. The brutality. That's what Star Trek is brutality.
Well, they just know that online video thrives if you put brutal in the title. People just click it. They go, my God, I have to see some brutal shit right now.
Brutal takedown of Ash Tyler's Klingon genome.
But at least Ichab, there's a thematic reason why they are taking his eye out without anesthesia, and no one seems to care. It's because they don't view him as a person.
Yeah. I mean, thank
you for the super chat.
That's much more relevant than all the fucking throats that get slit in this season.
Yeah.
The good guys kill so many people in this show, like viciously. They're with, like,
Elnor's
stuff that would get like an X or R rating in the 70s, where it's like full frame sliced with like blood shooting out of the front of the guy's neck. And then they're like, "Nice job, Elnor."
The action by Q and Picard did elevate the writing of the last episode, but I think the impact is based from TNG's experience. It entirely is. And that's what's so disappointing about it. I think there's actually a lot of depth to that God character saying goodbye, why he chooses Picard, what this means, and in a I don't know. I wouldn't even want to guess about it. It's just I think it's a tough storyline to pull off, no doubt, because I think that there's a lot of moving pieces to it, but I think you could easily do something better than what they came up with. Talk about the ridiculous use of lookalikes / doppelgangers for the season. It's so annoying and no explanation as to why they look alike. The production aspect just has to be, we have these actors here and we're just going to reuse them.
The Tal and Laris one is legitimately baffling.
Yeah.
But I mean, Brent Spiner's been playing alternate versions of Soong for 30 years.
Soji looking that way as a past ancestor kind of also makes sense in a weird way. But the Tal and Laris one is, it would, it's baffling either way. It's especially baffling because the first episode has Picard so amorous for her, but then when he runs into her, it's just like, hey, that's crazy. you look just like this chick I have a thing for, but you must be her ancestor. Must be the case. But they had no problem killing off the other guy, the other Romulan, the husband.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a well-known medical fact, Wes, at this point. You can ask your wife; she'll probably know this. That there are only 5 possible faces each bloodline can have, and so every time you have a child, you run through the next face. So every 5th descendant of yours will look just like that's why Back to the Future works the way it does, is because George McFly doesn't look like Marty. By the time you go back to the 1800s, looks like Marty.
Yeah, genetics is just a creator wrestler from the N64 where there's just 5 faces that you can slap between. That's what my understanding is of both Korean currency and genetics. Why are all your podcasts for patrons only? Because they pay us.
Yeah.
That's why.
Frankly.
What I don't like about Icheb's death, though, is it struck me as smug retaliation because the actor didn't follow the social media narrative, so it was a dick move on the part of the production team. Could be, because he didn't play the character in that. The old actor of Icheb was not recast as Icheb.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I vaguely remember that controversy, and honestly, I could not care less to revisit it.
That actor kind of strikes me as an ass. Anyway,
yeah.
He seemed like he was very sycophantic. I think he got upset. He was trying to like get in people's mentions. It's not so pathetic when you talk about this shit as an adult, but it's like he's trying to get in people's mentions, and he wanted to be on the show. And then when they did that, he got very angry that he was not recast for that part. But
cool.
That's Hollywood for you, baby. I don't even understand how being that exists outside of time and space can even die when it's not a concept. Also, I'm on your Patreon. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well,
then you know what my explanation is.
Tell everybody how good it is.
Answers your question.
Are the Borg ready to make a deal? No. Are the Borg in season 3? What do people think? Mention in the
we have
Borg
our
in
thoughts.
season 3 or Borg not in season 3 in the comments. Let me know what people think. I hope to God they're not there.
If you think they are, hashtag Bo C3 yes. If not, Bo C3 no, nay.
What do you think? Are they going to be there?
Given, like we said in the episode, given the way that it ends, I think they're positioning this transwarp conduit thing to be whatever brings the bad guy for season 3 through. And I'm thinking they're going to do like a V'ger in Star Trek the Motion Picture thing, where like the first line of defense gets completely wiped out, so you can see how intense it is, or some shit like that. And so I don't know. I mean, clearly Agnes is not in it, but I wouldn't put it past them to, have the vagina ship floating in front of the thing, and then it gets hit by a blast, and it's
People think not, or very minor baddies.
Thank you for using the hashtag.
You're trending now on youtube.com. They may appear, but not as villains. Rest in peace, Borg. Borgina. I don't think they're going to be there. I don't know. I hope not. You know, remember when Patrick Stewart said the Borg weren't going to be a part of this series?
Yeah. What the hell? Did he change his mind, or did I thought that was like one of his hard deal breakers.
Clay thinks they're going to tie up that wormhole thread and connect it. That's cute. In denial.
If it were any other show, I would say, yeah. I mean, the way that they lay it out, the way that Q is being weird and cryptic about it and saying like he's preparing Picard for what comes next or whatever, it feels obvious that it has something to do with the transwarp conduit wormhole. But yeah, knowing this show, who's to say?
No, we're probably not covering Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay. Yeah, we hadn't talked about it, but I think we're doing.
What is that show? Is it a miniseries or is it an actual season?
It's six episodes, like Boba Fett.
Guaranteed to be done after that.
Oh, I don't know. They have been advertising it as I think a 6-episode limited event or limited series or something. So that might be it, or not. Who knows? Who's to say anymore?
I don't think we're going to cover it. I'm not super interested in it.
I'll probably end up talking about it on one of the content consumptions at some point. Yeah, because I'll probably watch it.
I think that covers it. Because what was the last Star Wars thing? It was just a Book of Boba Fett, right? Was that the very last one? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Borg Easy Button. They paid Stewart enough money to change his mind about the Borg.
Probably, yeah.
Could be. Patrick, it's going to work. The pack led are baddies in another Star Trek series.
Well,
they are in Lower Decks.
So, what's interesting, actually, though, is that the way that I wonder if his stance was, I don't want the Borg to be the main villain, because technically they're not in either season. Like the first season, I think that they sold him on the concept of what they did in the first season, where it was that the Borg cube has now become a reclamation project and they're trying to de-Borgify people who are still on the ship. Because like we talked about that's actually legitimately interesting. That's an interesting way to take things. And I think Patrick Stewart seems like the kind of person who would respond positively to that. And even in this season, I think there's probably an aspect of selling it as, oh, we're going to give what's the word I'm looking for? We're going to give the Borg. My mind just froze. The word begins with an R. It's when you become a good person after you've been a bad person.
Oh, like restorative redemption.
Redemption. There we go. Yeah, we're going to give the Borg a redemption arc, and we're gonna show the there's another side to this evil fascist evil hive mind. Yeah, you know, and I'm sure that's probably how they pitched it. And again, even there, it's like that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Yep.
Yep. Follow my microphone as it moves here.
Which episode of Picard was closest to a 5? The first one.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart he's not just dating a 40-year-old, he's married to a 40-year-old. She was the singer in the episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What was the Tarek? Listen to Tarek, who I don't think is here. I haven't seen him. He had a question on Discord. I've been ignoring him on Discord because I've just been so busy and I feel bad. So I'll ask it here. His thing was basically, if I can find it, is this just one big ego trip for Stewart? I've had a feeling for a while now that there's something up with him. I wonder whether it has something to do with seeing his contemporaries, Derek Jacobi, Ian McKellen et al., continue to be taken seriously in a way that perhaps he's not. Yes, McClellan is known to many as Gandalf, but over here at least he's just as well regarded for his serious roles that he continues to do, where Stewart is only really thought of as Charles Xavier and Jean-Luc Picard after a promising early career in the Shakespeare Company and the seminal 70s BBC television drama I, Claudius. Is he trying and failing to get these pop culture things like Picard and Logan weight and gravitas that they don't deserve?
Well, I think he nailed it in Logan. I mean, that was about as well as you could do something like that, I think.
He's not the main character there. Like it's a little. I mean, but the tone of Logan and stuff works.
Yeah.
I mean, Logan's obviously much better.
But like he also, outside of Star Trek and X-Men, hasn't really been super prolific. Like it's not like he's pop. I mean, maybe he's doing stage work.
Yeah, he does theater.
But like as far as movies and TV shows, when he does that stuff, it's mostly comedy bits. Like he's not really, and I don't know if people aren't giving him roles or whatever, but like he was in what was it? Green Room. I almost said Green Book.
Yeah,
it was a very different movie. He was in Green Room, and I haven't seen that, but I know he was praised
people like
for his
that
performance in that.
Yeah. His movies after TNG ended always struck me as a real terrible string of movies that he was in.
Like that Christmas one that we watched.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was even much later. He was in that. He's like the evil headmaster of a school that the kids take over with like army toys or something like that. It was really, really awful.
I don't know that. He was the bad guy in Ransom. No, not Ransom.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Mel Gibson movie, right?
No, it was
Conspiracy
Theory.
Conspiracy Theory, yeah.
Mel Gibson, yes. Different one, yeah. I don't know why he doesn't really, he's not super prolific on the screen anyway. So I kind of, I don't know. I think a lot of these guys keep this stuff in their back pocket for just this occasion, where it's like, Michael Keaton played Batman 30 years ago. He said he'd never do it again, which means that when he decides to do it again, which he is, they're just going to back a dump truck full of money up to his house. So,
yeah. Does voice work? I mean,
sure.
He's old.
Ton of voice work. Yeah.
I was, Shatner was on the Bill Maher podcast or something. He has like a sort of non-politics podcast that he does now, and Shatner was on it. Shatner looks great for how old
he's like 90 years old, isn't he?
He looks like he's 55, and he's talking. He's like, hey, I can follow all this conversation.
He went to space last year.
It's just they've gone through some kind of circling the sun at the speed of light thing where like time is now reversed on the two of them, and it's not getting caught up. I don't know. Strange. Laughable Larry. Sorry, did I miss something?
No, I was just going to say Eric's Antoine mentioned said a film by Jonathan Frakes. Which one is a film by Jonathan Frakes?
There's a film by Frakes. Let me see.
He says it in the comments. Eric's, if you could answer that question for us.
Oh, this film. He just had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Laughable Larry says, doesn't the Borg changing in the past change the future entirely? The season as a whole was garbage. I guess you have to assume that they're two different Borg collectives, and that's the way that they get around this.
Unless you go with yes, thank you. Unless you go with what I said earlier, where it's they're like, well, technically, at that point in the space-time continuum, nothing had been set in stone at that moment. So really, it hinges on the events of the series to determine where the world goes from some bullshit timey-wimey reasoning.
Yeah. Mercer and I saw Shatner live recently. He has a ton of energy still. He was great on the Mar podcast. I just mentally, it was shocking. Like he was just on the conversation. He was actively, like energetically a part of a conversation in a way that 90-year-olds are hard to get to do that.
Did it sound like he was actually engaging, or did it sound like he was maneuvering to anecdotes or in stories that he
was engaging. He was like clearly listening and responding. And Mar was talking about like, it's just a clip. Mar was talking about like how he's never gotten married, and he had some really interesting feedback about like his thoughts on marriage and stuff like that. I was like, this is kind of neat. Every new toupee takes 5 years off. He's 45 now. He looks 45. Masterminds. That's the name of the Patrick Stewart movie. Obi-Wan is old. Yeah. Ewan McGregor.
He's also dead.
Well, we're past an hour. I think we might be done with this. Will we continue coverage for Battlestar Galactica Reimagined? Oh, is that the Ron Moore remake? I assume, is that what you're talking about? Probably not. We just did
Yeah,
we did the miniseries on Patreon.
Got a lot of stuff to get through. They keep making Star Trek shows. We're going to keep doing them.
I know. Thank you, patrons, for being very
very
generous.
much.
It makes it easy to do. I think we had good. Not to pat ourselves on the back. I think we had good coverage of Picard that season.
I think so.
I think those were good episodes, good podcast episodes, not good show episodes. If only one element of season 2 could be changed or tweaked, what would you do for the most good of the show?
I can tell you. I can't tell you because that's basically my whole pitch on the episode that we covered. So
I'll do mine. Clay's is on Patreon. If I could change something, it would be it's so tough because there's a million different things. It's kind of like it's like putting an ice cube into a boiling pot of water. It's like this is not going to do much good, no matter how much I want this ice cube to do something. I would. I think you just fundamentally have to retweak what the point of going into the past is for everybody here. And I don't think that the show really nailed why this is reliving trauma or being good for their exploration of it in a way that, Seven was happy to lose her Borg eyepieces and stuff. And that's kind of interesting, but they don't really touch on it. And Picard's mother is not a good enough reason to do that stuff. But I think if you're going to go into the past and have a story about past trauma, you kind of have to deal with it. It has to be something to talk about. And I don't think the show ever did.
Yeah. I think, like I said, there's too many things going on at a point where you really need to kind of focus on what exactly you're doing and why you're doing it. Why are you sending people back in time? What has been changed? Why do you need to do it? Because that's the thing that's so fascinating about the whole back in time thing is the idea that you have to go back in time and change something in order to make sure that the timeline you're in happens implies that something has been changed, like someone else has changed it. We talked a bit about Back to the Future 2 and how that makes sense because you have Biff going back with the almanac and actively changing something, so you have to go fix it. This is just so vague up for the first 2 or 3 episodes, and it's just like penance, I guess.
Yeah.
And it just makes things really hard to track. And we were like 7 episodes into this and we're still trying to figure out exactly how anything they're doing affects anything in the future.
Yeah.
Or any basic stuff like that. So
yeah.
I will say I don't want to give the whole game away, but the one thing I would tweak does involve the magically appearing third act of the last episode, galactic level event.
Yeah, the black hole thing
that's happening just off camera that they miss until Girardi tells them to look 20 feet to their left.
Thanks for giving us plebes who can't afford patrons some content. Sure thing. And I'm sorry. It has to be on Patreon, but it kind of does for my sanity. But here's some content. We hated it. If you want to know how much we hated it, you can go there. And you're also getting the Voyager. You get a Voyager app every single week. That's a blessing in disguise. I don't know why that popped into my head. It's certainly not that, but yeah, there's stuff out there. Thanks for the convo. We've been listening for a while. You're a new patron. Thank you very much.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that. I was so close to just throwing it out the window and telling you what my thing was, and now you got to go listen to it for yourself.
In a 45-minute episode, season 2's plot would be Q showing Picard different moments of his life, like a best hits. Tapestry. It's just not as good of a tapestry. All right, I guess we're done. Thanks for this. We should do more live streams. I don't know why I don't. It's an easy way to get this kind of stuff out there. But yeah, all the content's on Patreon if you want to hear the stuff about that. Strange New Worlds is happening on Patreon at this point as well. Voyager continues as normal. And I guess we shot down Obi-Wan I wish there was some good mini series out there to do. I would do a mini series, like if I had like a 5-episode thing to get through. I think that would be easy. I don't know if Obi-Wan is it for me. Maybe if the first episode's really good. I do like McGregor. That would be nice, but we'll see.
My biggest so after Boba Fett, especially, I'm not super my hopes aren't super high for Kenobi, but I'm hoping that what if you get Ewan McGregor to do this and agree to it, then you put the work in to make sure it's worth what you're paying him to do it. Because I mean, screwing up Boba Fett, ultimately, nobody gives a shit. But if you're gonna screw up Kenobi, that's a horse of a different color.
And so, what's the timeline for this? Is this before he meets Luke on Tatooine? Is it like right before he meets him?
Yes, Luke is like 7 or 8 or something, I think.
Okay.
And the one thing that made me hopeful about the tone and about what they might be doing is in that trailer when Obi-Wan is talking to Uncle Owen, and he's like, "I need to train him," and then Uncle Owen's like, "Yeah, like you trained his father." Kenobi's like, "Oh, you didn't have to say it."
We were all thinking it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that would be worth it. Let me know how the first one is, and we can go from there. Whether or not it's something to do. You know, they're going to tease Vader constantly for many episodes on that show.
I mean, he's in it. They've got Hayden Christensen. Yeah, they got Hayden Christensen back for summer. I guess you need him to be in the suit for some reason.
I hate you.
Oh, jeez.
It's good stuff. We haven't.
If that show would be worth it if for the confrontation when Vader and Obi-Wan finally meet, it's one of those things where they go into a room and like Vader refuses to sit down because if he sits down, then Obi-Wan will have the high ground. Or like he always has to go up the stairs first.
Yeah, constantly.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Constant adjustments about where things are. Tamura Morrison more than Boba Fett. I don't know who that is.
He's the guy who plays Boba Fett.
Oh, gotcha. All right, guys. I guess we're done. Thanks everybody for joining the stream. Hope you enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure talking to everybody. Hope you're all enjoying Strange New Worlds if you're watching. And let's see, last comment here. Bad Trek can be terrible if there are characters you like in it, and Voyager, at least as the Doctor, but Picard Discovery have no one. So you're stuck with the terrible. That's true. All right, Zalen, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And the Patreon is out there. Discord is out there. All that stuff. But it's been fun. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of Picard Season 2. And now on to Strange New Worlds and Voyager. So see you later. No problem, Steven. See you, Jason. See you, Video Void. Bye-bye.